So you want to motivate your child with rewards. But how? Money, points, treasure boxes? How do you set up a system that's effective? I'm Amanda Hasty, mother and teacher, and today I'm going to tell you about 8 behavior reward systems that I've used in my home and in my classroom. I'm going to tell you the pros and the cons that I've noticed with each of them, and even tell you where you can find some free resources to help you set up your behavior reward system. And don't forget to subscribe for more great educational content and tips. The traffic light system. I'm going to start by telling you about a pretty simple system that I used with younger kids in the classroom. You start with a traffic light that you put up at the front of the classroom and all the students' names on clothespins. The students' names all start on green. Go for it. You're doing great. Then as the day progresses, if a student starts acting out or misbehaving, they might move to yellow. Slow down and check your behavior. And then if they continue to act out, then they move to the red. Stop, and let's get on the right track. I did slightly change my system as the year went on. I noticed that I didn't like all the students seeing where all the other students were on the behavior chart. Some students would get embarrassed and some would act out more as their clothespin moved to yellow or to red. So I changed the system by, instead of hanging a stoplight up on the wall, I moved it so each student had a stoplight at their own desk. Then when they misbehaved, I would move it right on their desk. And then they could see where they were. It was very present and close to them, but it wasn't displayed to the whole class. So the way this worked is that every day I would mark where a student was at the end of the day. So maybe they moved to yellow or red, but they came back to green. It's wherever they were at the end of the day I would keep track of. And then at the end of the month, they had to get a certain number of greens that they ended the day with for the whole month. And then they would get a certificate that went home to their parents to say a great behavior certificate. So some pros that I found with this system was that it was a really easy system to set up. It was an easy system to maintain. It was really cheap. I didn't have to worry about buying and shopping for a lot of treasure box items or classroom store items, and I did really like that. Some negatives I found, like I said at the beginning, when it was up front, I found that it was negative that all the students could see where other kids were on their behavior chart. I also have a negative that when I went to a multi-grade classroom, for those of you who don't know, for a while I taught a K through 8 one-room school. And in that type of a setting, it didn't work real well for me either. It was a system that worked well for younger kids, not so much for older kids. Another struggle I had is that kids don't always remember things a month out. And so right after I gave those behavior certificates, I had kids trying really hard to end the day on green. But then as we progressed in the month, they would forget and not try as hard. So the next system I want to tell you about are behavior cards. Now, I've used these behavior cards both in the classroom for young children and at my home when I had a young foster child. So these behavior cards look like bookmarks. And on them, it lists out some different things that I want the students to start focusing on or working on. Like in the classroom, I use staying on task, finishing schoolwork, keeping your body to yourself. At home, I had some different things like come when called, follow instructions, accept no. Now, at school, I had smiley faces already on the card. So if a student, say, was not listening, I could cross out a smiley face. Or if they're listening really well, I could add one. At home, I started with blanks, and I could just add a smiley face if the child was doing those things. So I found that leaving them blank was probably better for the child because I was able to pay closer attention and to reaffirm when the child was doing those things. But in a classroom, it didn't work out real well to leave them blank because sometimes that really quiet, really good child in the back can just get ignored. And then they'd end up at the end of the the time when we're using the bookmark and they wouldn't have any smiley faces. So I thought it was really important to always at school have smiley faces to start. So the really quiet, really well-behaved student would end their time having lots of smiley faces. So the way that I did it at school is at the end of the week, we would tally up smiley faces. So we'd count how many they had. Maybe they had additional to what was here, or we'd have to subtract if they lost some. It was really honestly a great learning opportunity because they would help me count and add and subtract smiley faces for their own behavior card. And then they would earn these little paper pennies for all the smiley faces they had. And they could use those to buy things at the school store. Now, at home, we would tally up the smiley faces at the end of every day. And once again, it was really good because she was able to see how she was doing each day, and we would start each day fresh. Now, I couldn't do that at school. Once again, when you have so many kids, you just don't have the time to do that. But at home, I could do that because I just had her to focus on. And so at the end of the day, we would tally up her smiley faces, and we would put those on a thermometer, which I'm actually going to talk about the thermometer next, so you'll hear more about that. So some things I liked about this system were definitely the learning opportunities, the adding and subtracting of smiles, as well as the use of pennies. And I had other coins as well, so if they collected 10 of them, they could move up to a dime and such. And so they were learning coins while doing this system as well. So lots of learning opportunities with this system. I also liked the very immediate consequences and very immediate incentives for their behavior. Another thing I really liked was that I could modify exactly what skills I wanted to work on. So at home especially, it was really nice because we knew we needed to work on accepting no. And that's something exactly I could put down there. And when she accepted no, I could praise her and put a smiley face on immediately. I also liked that I could take this bookmark with us wherever we went. So I actually kept it in my purse when we went to the grocery store. I could incentivize her for doing well at the grocery store right on her bookmark. But at school, I could also change and modify the things. If there's something specific that our class needed to work on, I could update and change this based on those things. Another thing I really like about the system is that I like to be liberal with my rewards. You are listening so well that I just have to give you 3 smiley faces. And that was really easy to do because each smiley face was just a paper penny. And so it was really easy to be very liberal. And based on how liberal I was, I just made the things in the classroom store be worth more or less based on that. So the one struggle that I did have with the system is that it did take a lot of work to set up and maintain because we had to have a new bookmark every single day for at home or every single week at school. I had to print them, cut them out, maintain them, as well as doing the counting and the tallying up at the end. Now, I always really like with my behavior systems to have kind of a family meeting, is what we called it at home, or in classroom on Fridays, having that day where we kind of come together and look at how we did that week. I really enjoyed that, but you might not have that amount of time. So that could definitely be a negative for this system. Now, if you like this system and would like to use it, I do have a link down below of my copy of this. Feel free to print it off to modify it how it works for you, but that's available for you if you would like it. So the next behavior reward system I want to talk about is the thermometer. Now, I've used this with a young child as well as with a teenager before. I've only used this system at home, never in the classroom. So with the thermometer system, you tally up an amount of points or smiles, as I always do, up to 50. And once they hit the goal amount, they got something out of the treasure box. Now, like I said, with the younger child, we did the bookmark system where we gained smiles all day long. And at the end of the day, we would come together at a family meeting and we would total up her smiles and give her that many smiles. And she would see the thermometer rise every single day. With the teenager, we didn't do the bookmark system. Instead, she had a list of things that she had goals to do during the day. For example, to clean her room, to brush and floss her teeth, to practice her piano, to speak respectfully. So when she did those things, at the end of the day, we would talk about whether she met her goals, and then she'd get points based on those goals and move up her thermometer. Once again, her thermometer went to 50, and when she got to 50, she got something out of the treasure box. Now, the pros for this system is that you can modify exactly what goals you're going for. I also think it's a pro that you have that meeting at the end of the day. Now, some people might not have that time, but I really like an end of the day meeting to talk about how the day went. And we always do that in our home. We always have an end of the day family meeting. And so it worked out really well for us. Now, some negatives for this system is that you have to make sure the things in the treasure box are desirable. So the next behavior reward system I want to talk about is the system of hearts and talents. Now, I've used this system both in a Christian school classroom as well as in my own home. So I had the students help me cut out and make these hearts, and they decorated them for me. And then I wrote goals or character building things we wanted to work on. So some examples are write a letter to a school board member to thank them, worth 16 talents. Get fresh air and sunshine every day. Go outside for at least 30 minutes. 5 talents. Do all things without murmuring or complaining. 15 talents. So whether I was using it at home or in the classroom, some different things were written on them. But the students would get these at the beginning of the day, or my children would get them at the beginning of the day. And throughout the day, it was their goal to do those things. Now at the end of the day, like I said, I always do an end of the day meeting in classroom or at home as well. We would talk about whether they had completed their goal for the day, their heart for the day. If they hadn't, they would keep that one for the next day and the next day, and they would keep it until they were able to complete it. If they did complete it, then they would get that number of talents. Now, I just use toe tokens, if you've heard of them. These are just little heart toe tokens, and they would get that many. Now, I've used these differently. In some classrooms, these were worth like a penny or a quarter. And at home, I had the children collect them in a jar. So as children earned these toe tokens, they put them in the jar. And when we filled the jar of kind deeds to the family, our whole jar was full. We all went out for ice cream and enjoyed it together. So some things that I really liked about this system is that I did one too. And so I had some kind of a goal for the day that I was working on. And it was a family thing. All of us worked on these things together, and we all worked towards a common goal. I also think that working on behavior and character is very important. A con with this system is that it's not a standalone behavior system. This works on character, which, like I said, I think is important, but if you're working on academics or specific behavioral issues that you're working with, this is not going to address those things. And so this I've always used with another behavior reward system. So the next behavior reward system I want to talk about is the bingo board. Now, I use this in a middle school classroom to keep track of assignments. So I had the days of the week and the different assignments that I wanted them to complete. Then as they completed an assignment, they just got to check it off. And then at the end of the week, a completed row or column earned them something, and a full board earned them something even more. So I had them earn something called Hasty Bucks, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later. But you could also do it with earning points or going up on the thermometer, whatever works for you. So something I really liked about this system, especially in the classroom setting or in a homeschool setting, is keeping a track of completed assignments. It also gives motivation for every single assignment to be completed. Some negatives with this system is there isn't a behavioral component. And so I used this with another system because I think having a behavior component is very important. Also, another negative with this system is if you have a large group you're working with, like if you have a whole classroom, I found if I had a large classroom, it was really hard to stay on top of them or to make sure they were being filled out correctly. Now, I've actually had the idea to resurrect this idea with my 2.5-year-old. Obviously, not with these type of assignments on there, but putting on with pictures the things that I want her to complete in the morning, a morning routine. And so a picture of getting out of the bed, brushing her teeth, going to the bathroom, getting dressed. And as she completes those things, putting a sticker on them. And I think with her, I wouldn't even have it end of the week or end of the day tally up. It would just be putting on the sticker would be the reward itself. And I think it's going to work really well. The next behavior reward system I want to talk about is the jar system. So to do this, you need to get some kind of a large jar. Sometimes you can find them with food in them, maybe pretzels or cheese puffs at Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart. Empty all the food out and then use the empty jar. And then you need some other item like jewels or beads, marbles work. Sometimes you can get these things at the craft store. I've used beans before, just bought a massive amount of beans. And this is a system where the whole group works together. So as the group has good behavior, maybe everyone's turned in their math assignment, or everyone was on task for their work, or maybe all of your kids cleaned up the kitchen without you asking. You put some of that item into the jar and they can see the jar filling up. As the jar fills up and you work towards your goal and it's full, then you do something big. Maybe you go on a field trip, or you all go out for ice cream, or you watch a movie over lunch. Whatever it is that you decide, the group goal is once it's full. Then you empty it out and start all over again. Now, some good things about this system is that it teaches teamwork. Everyone works together towards filling it up. I also like this system is because it's really easy to maintain. You're just putting something inside a jar. It's also a nice system because you can be liberal with it. I've told you before, I like systems where you can be liberal and give a lot. And you just put handfuls of the beans in and they can see it rising faster. So I really like that about the system. A negative part about the system is if you have one child who's choosing not to participate. One child sometimes who is deliberately working against the group. I had that before, and in that case, it got to the point where I had to say that this child does not count towards us filling the jar. So if they did something that was poor behavior, nothing came out of the jar. And if they did good behavior, nothing went into the jar. Either way. And then when we filled the jar up, that child was not able to participate in the activity that we did. Now that's a hard thing to do, and you only want to do that in extreme cases, but I only had to do that one time. And then that child was participating, working as a team, and helping us add to our jar. The next behavior reward system I want to talk about, we always called Friday Fun Time. And I need to thank my mentor teacher for teaching me this one. So the way we did this system is all you need is a timer. You give children a reasonable amount of time to complete something. So maybe to clean up the classroom at the end of the day, or to come back in after a break, to complete their math facts. They get that amount of time to do it. When it's time to start, you click the timer to start it. And then at the end, when they finish it, whatever amount of time they have left after finishing it adds to Friday Fun Time. So for example, maybe you want your kids to clean up the kitchen after lunch. Okay, you say you have 10 minutes to clean up the kitchen after lunch, if that's a reasonable amount of time for your family. Then they complete that kitchen cleanup job in maybe 9 minutes and 10 seconds. That means that they would have 50 seconds to go on to Friday Fun Time. So we would always add throughout the week And then at the end of the week, we take that amount of Friday fun time and we would do something with it. At school, you could take that time as recess time. Maybe at home, your kids really like it when you read to them. That can be time that you read to them, or you play a game that they specifically want to play. Whatever it is, that time is spent doing something fun with the whole family. Now, some pros for this is that, once again, it teaches teamwork. I really like that. I also like that I don't have to repeat, hurry up, can you please do that, keep on task, over and over again. When a timer's going, children usually move. Something that is a con for this system is that you really can't use it for things that take thought or something you want done well, because you do want to teach children to take their time and to complete something well. If you're wanting them to read a chapter and understand it, a timer is not a good system for that. Or if you're wanting a child to complete an art project or a writing project well. Once again, a timer is not a good system for doing that. But if it's something that just needs to get done, this is a great system for that. Okay, the last behavior reward system I'm going to talk about is the simulation economy. Now, this is a rather complex system, but I love it. I've used it in almost every classroom and with a lot of my children. It just works really well even across the ages. And you can make it as complex or as simple as you choose to make it. So you start by having money. Now you can buy fake money and use that. I like to print off money and I'm able to put pictures of my family on it, on the different bills. And it's really fun then for the kids to use. So we start with money, and then you build your economy. So either your home economy or your classroom economy. So ways that children can earn money and ways that money goes out, is spent. So I have used this Hasty Bucks, as we call them, because my last name's Hasty. So Hasty Bucks, and students or children can get them for doing jobs or assignments, for completion of classwork, for doing good things. Sometimes they earn money for good behavior. In my classroom, I have had jobs, specific jobs listed, posted, and the students can apply for those jobs. If they get hired to do them, then I write them a paycheck for completing the job. They can take that paycheck and then they can cash it for money, or they can put it in the bank, because one of the jobs is a banker. So ways the money goes out is that my children can get ticketed for poor behavior if they're not doing something they're supposed to be doing. Another way they can lose money is if they don't complete their job. Then they won't receive, I guess not losing it, but they just won't receive what they had originally been promised to get. Another way money goes out is through bills. So I have them pay rent for their desks. I've also had older students that I've worked with where we've done natural disasters, where things just happen each week, where they would have to spend money. Kind of building that knowledge about how money really works. Probably the most fun way money goes out is through a classroom store. So I fill a classroom store with items and price them based on what I want their prices to be, and the students can use their Hasty Bucks to buy them. Now, if you don't have room for a classroom store, another way that I've done it is done an auction. So every month you do an auction and you just get some really nice things and then you auction them off, and students can use their Hasty Bucks to buy those auction items. So some things I really like about this system, which I told you, this is my favorite system, is that it teaches students, children, about money and economy and how it works. And I really like that we're setting them up to understand bills and income and being productive and completing jobs. So I really like that. Another thing I really like about this system is that it works for academics, for chores, for behavior. You can use the system to work for whatever you want it to. The negative about this system is that it is a lot of work to set up, especially if you're adding all the different complexities to it. It can take a lot of work to set up, and you have to be consistent as you use it. Now, another benefit is that there are some free resources available for this program. I'm going to link it down below. There's some banks that have provided resources like the free money and some different ideas of how you can set it up based on an age level. So once again, that's linked below. Okay, I know that was a lot of systems, but there's just a couple of things I want to touch on still. So most behavior systems end in some kind of a treasure box or a store. So the question is, how do I fill that? What if I don't have a lot of money to put into it? That's a fair question, especially if you're a teacher and you're doing this system for lots of kids. Well, here's a couple things that I've done. First thing is I really like to use fake money or points or coins or jewels because I get to set the price for things. And so in my store, if I put a nice pair of sunglasses in there, I can charge $200, $500, $1,000 for that pair of sunglasses. I get to choose how long or how much a child has to earn to get that. And so that is a nice system for using fake money, even at home. Because when you pay in real money, the stores choose the value of something. But at home, you can choose the value of it. And if you are working with older kids, giving them like a penny or a dime for an activity doesn't have much value. But if you give $1 or $25 of fake money, even though maybe it only has the value of 25 cents in your store, it still feels like more. And it also teaches more of the value of holding on to money and saving money. Another thing about this play money is when you make it fun, like having pictures of your kids on it, I know that even in the classroom, some of my children that I worked with saved money just for the sake of saving money. They had the goal to have the most amount of Hasty Bucks than anyone in the classroom, or more than anyone else in my classrooms had ever had. And so really the reward was just this piece of paper. Another thing you can do, because inevitably you have to sell something, is going to a dollar store. I really like the Dollar Tree. Shout out to them, where everything is really $1. And like I said, sometimes when I was working with my own children, I actually brought them there to choose the things that they wanted to put in their treasure box or the things they wanted in the store. And it's only $1, and so I could get a lot more things that way. The third thing I like to do to save money on my rewards is to sell experiences instead of stuff. To be honest, we don't want the stuff around our house anyways. So, beside my store, I always have a list of things they can purchase that are intangible items. Like if you homeschool, wearing PJs all day long for school. In a classroom, wearing socks around the classroom. Giving the child the opportunity to print something of their choice off the printer. Watching a movie over lunch. Or taking a trip to a playground or a mall. A field trip if you're at school. Think about what your child likes. There are many intangible things that you can sell that will save you money on rewards. Remember, whatever system you choose to use, be consistent. If you can't be consistent with a complicated system, then choose a simple one. Inconsistent behavior systems don't work. Also remember, sometimes a system that's been working stops working, and you'll need to change it. That's why I've used these 8 systems and more. I hope you found this video helpful. Remember to check out the links below. And if you have a behavior reward system that's worked really well for you, please share it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot.